Okay, so about 1995, I started thinking about the way we use funds in the agency. And one of the adjustments that I made coming out of the for-profit sector to the nonprofit sector was getting this understanding about dollars in the nonprofit sector. They're not all created equal. And most of the dollars we get at neighborhood centers arrive with a little stamp or a tag on them that says, this is what you must do with this. And there's a lot of discussion in the nonprofit sector about one kind of funding versus another kind of funding. And what I quickly realized was that government and public dollars were going to do one kind of work. And it was going to be restricted, and it was going to be very prescriptive, and there were going to be enormous controls and all kinds of requirements that went with it. And then I realized there were other kinds of money that we could get. That kind of money was money we earned ourselves. We found a way to rent space for fees, or we collected fees from clients, or we earned money in some other kind of fashion. People were willing just to give to us as a cause, not for specific activity. So it seemed to me that those two extremes, one very restricted, one very prescriptive, lots of requirements and rules and demands on the organization, the other just a belief in what we were doing and our purpose, that those two kinds of money were at opposite ends of a spectrum, but the entire spectrum was important. But it also became clear that whereas this kind of money you could only use in a particular way, you had to agree to that, and then you had to uphold that agreement. This other kind of money really had to use it in a really unique way so that you got all the benefit. So this kind of circles that describe these different elements. The way we've drawn it here is really about how we do it at neighborhood centers. But the principles apply no matter what kind of organization you're running or what kind of money you're getting if you're a nonprofit. There are also applications in the for-profit sector, but you know, they're doing fine making money. We're not worrying about them today. So what's going on here at neighborhood centers is because our devotion, our commitment is really to low-income families and neighborhoods. We're focused on people who are working hard. They're still struggling financially, but they have a lot to offer. So we look across the country and say, what dollars are there to really support families and communities? And for low-income families, there's always going to be a significant amount of money that's designed, public funds, designed through legislation to address a particular concern, a particular population, a particular issue in a neighborhood or a community. So we want to look first at those dollars, even though we know they come with restrictions and rules and a lot of bureaucratic demands. And we want to do that because it's too large amount of money to walk away from. It's never going to be designed the way we want it to do it, the work exactly as we would do it. It doesn't come that way because these things are written and designed in other places. It becomes our job, though, to figure out how to make it work here. So we start with the government funding. That is the core. That's how we anchor our work in a particular neighborhood or community or with a particular population. We get those public dollars, and then that allows us to understand exactly what's going on. Maybe our first contract in working with veterans, for example, it's a government contract to do a very prescriptive thing, a very specific thing. Now, what we dream of for veterans goes way beyond that prescription and that narrow service unit. We dream of something that allows veterans to come back to our community, reintegrate, find meaningful work, apply the skill and experience they've gained in the military, and become, again, a part of a community in which they feel valued and safe. The contract we start with is not going to do all that, but we don't walk away from it because it's not designed with the full transformation in mind. We go for it, and then we say, now how do we marry other things with this so that it's truly responsive, so that it's evolutionary? And this is a lot about one of the principles of evolutionary leadership. It's to do what you can with what you have, where you are, and I like to add, right now. So right now, that core source of funding that is designed for that particular transaction, we add some United Way funding. We're lucky to live in a community with a strong United Way that has raised money year over year, and it provides a real sustainable source of support for many of the programs that impact low-income families and communities. So we might add that to that one contract. And that money we might be using for in a more flexible way. So this now pays for staff that might be able to help veterans with a particular financial issue. This also applies to seniors. We have a contract, for example, for seniors. It just provides a meal. That's a publicly funded contract. It's a meal. Our dream for seniors is they age in place and they get to stay in their homes and their communities for the maximum length of time. So we add some United Way money to that money that just funds a meal and a place for people to go every day. And then we have staff that can monitor for significant issues. They can help seniors remember to take their medication. They can identify problems at the onset before they become so significant that seniors can't live in their homes alone anymore. And so when they do that, when we add those United Way dollars to the meals, now we have something a little closer to supporting seniors to stay and age in place. But while we're doing this now, we have a great understanding. We're seeing what the issues and concerns and challenges are. We're listening to seniors about what they want to accomplish in their lives. So when we might add a corporate or foundation grant to that. So recently we've been doing some work with foundations on evidence-based programs around senior fitness. Big concern, big issue, big opportunity. So when you add that now, you have a meal and you have a place for people to come together and you have someone who's helping seniors find activities that are rewarding and meaningful for them, identifying problems at the onset. Now you have a fitness program that's really preventing some of the things that we don't want to see happen with seniors. Beyond that, maybe we want to do an intergenerational program. That becomes a little more experimental. We don't really know how that's going to work. We're not absolutely confident that we know what the outcome is going to be of bringing, for example, young people and seniors together on a technology project. So if we have more flexible money, those individuals that just write a check to the organization because they believe in what we do, or they send us money for seniors because they know that we're all better off if seniors age in place and they make our community stronger. Now that's a dollar that we can use to try something a little different. And by putting seniors and youth together, we might see an outcome that we couldn't have anticipated and better than we might have imagined. We need those dollars that are more flexible to try things like that. And then with our own earned income, we might fund expansion or something that's very unique and different that we might do with a particular population to see how that works. So the whole idea behind these circles is that we move from the inner circle, which might be quite restrictive, to the outer circle where we might be really, really flexible in terms of what we're allowed to do. Someone's just, either we've earned the income ourselves or someone's expressed trust in the organization and the way we work, and they've provided some funding that allows us to try some new things. Now here's the important part, and here's where a lot of nonprofits get into trouble, and also where we face the real challenge of how do we evolve and experiment. So you get into trouble if you try to experiment with the dollars that are very restrictive, because they want you to do exactly what you committed to doing. And we have it's perfectly normal to look at that and say, well, that's not what it needs to be. But the answer to that is not to try to force an evolution in an external bureaucracy. So we don't do that. We say, okay, that's what that does. We will do that exactly as it's written. Now how do we build out from that? The other mistake that nonprofits can make is to take that earned income, take that flexible funding, take the dollar that's given because people trust us to do good work, and use it for something that is already prescriptive. In other words, it's never available. You've put it in the annual budget every year, and you're using it for what you're already doing, so you don't have a dollar to do something new. And so organizations can't evolve because in the minds of many nonprofits, we can't do anything new till somebody writes us a check. And if you're still in the framework of thinking the only way we get to do something new is when the rest of the world figures it out, you're sabotaging your own efforts because you're right where you need to be. You know you're already working with people. You're hearing every day what they're working on, what they're struggling with, and what they're aspiring to. So you're right there with all the information you need to be evolutionary, to experiment. So you have to hang on to the dollars that are more flexible and design your work to be supported by those, your evolutionary work to be supported by those. So you can constantly feed back to the organization those new things that are working more strongly. So What I think is really important to take away from this is to never expect that all the dollars you need are going to come in the right kind of package to do the work you long to do. That our dreams and aspirations for people and theirs for themselves are bigger, broader, and much deeper than anyone's going to design a grant around. So it's up to us to hold those aspirations at the center of our work, and then understand that it's our job to make what is available, to arrange it so that it actually is effective, so the outcomes we are working toward are possible. Now, here's another great thing about putting funding together in this way. If you're not going to wait for the perfect funding source, you are going to allow all the resources available. You're going to work to arrange those toward that right end. You might lose 1 year or 2 years one of those sources. You're going to see the circles grow and expand. You're going to see one whole circle drop out. You know, we've lived through times, and I've seen year over year in organizations, and particularly ours, where, you know, there's a legislative action that just says, well, we're really not interested in this anymore. Funders in some wholesale fashion get carried away down a stream of saying it's all about education, it's only about education. What happens to seniors? Or we get very preoccupied with place-based strategies and we forget about other things. So you're going to always have these shifts and these tides that operate in terms of what the public and what private supporters are willing to fund. When that happens, if you lose one of those circles and this grows or shrinks, you still are in touch with the people that you're working with. You still have a source of funding that allows you a constant conversation, a flow of information about what's going on with them. So when the world shifts again, as it inevitably does, you're prepared, because now you've got a narrative and a story and data that positions you to go and get the support that's now available. So this is really about being enterprising. It's about being flexible. And most importantly, it's about appreciating what is there and understanding our role to creatively arrange that for the outcomes that we want to see in our communities and with our families.